All right. Hello, everyone. Just a bit of like a guideline of how we'll do things. We'll probably start in a minute or two. We'll run till 8 o'clock p.m. The Q&A, and then if anyone wants to stay on and have a little discussion with whoever can actually stay past 8, feel free to do that as well. Just remember to mute your mic if you're not talking. Uh, Please be polite and no hate speech, and keep everything friendly. If you have any questions, well, this is a Q&A, so please put them in the Zoom chat and I will go through and try and moderate them and pass them to the right person on team. You can actually start doing that now if you want, and then I can actually start sorting questions. So if you need a minute or two to start writing some questions, please do. Welcome to everyone else that's coming, a couple of minutes late as well. Yeah, Sandy, I might just get you to do the welcome to country.
This meeting is occurring on the lands of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and acknowledge their ongoing connection to land, waters, and culture. Colonization and genocide are ongoing processes that still happen today. Sovereignty was never ceded, and this always was and always will be Aboriginal land.
Thank you, Sandy. Dave, I might get you to introduce the team that's here and the team that's not here, and you can even explain a little bit about roles as well.
Sure.
While people start to put their questions in, because there's no questions yet.
I'll run through them. Yeah. So Michael is our company's director. So Michael did the first Stawk Falls, directed that, and then was gracious enough to pass me the reins for this one. Natalie, so she was there very early in the project. She did a lot of the writing. A lot of the stuff regarding the Falls Festival was all Natalie. Sandy was Marilyn. She did a lot of the writing for the project and just a lot of improv. She's got a bit of a comedy background, so you might remember her from the first Stawk Falls. Josh Cake is our musician, so he did the pumpkin song you might remember from the end credits, and just a lot of the music from the different radio shows and the hold music. We've got Jack M is Gorman, so Gorman is present. We also have, is that everyone we have? I think that's everyone we have tonight. So we've also got a couple of people absent. Callum Page, he did the illustrations for the Witch video and a bunch of the puzzles. So everything regarding Lev Saltzman, he wrote and designed the puzzles around them. We've also got Connor, who's absent, and he was in charge of everything regarding McMorrow. So all the McMorrow stuff would have been Connor's creation. And Beth, I'm not sure if Beth is here yet, but Beth was...
She's not here yet, but she's coming.
So Beth was our producer, also just the champion of the project. So basically, she's kind of the reason this got off the ground. Just doing all the grunt work of working out how this could be funded and how it could be worked into our plan for the year. And that's the team.
Great, thanks, Dave. Yep, please start to think of questions and put them through. There's one question which we will start with. So hello, Canister, who's been very involved in the Reddit over the years of Ukiyo Home. Please, so this question, I might actually ask you, Dave, because it's quite a specific story one, and I'll try and have a think of it myself because it probably relates to the first one as well. Please explain the special milk Dorothy was addicted to in the first game, and have there been references to addiction in connection to the milk throughout? What the hell was in the milk?
I think it's slightly one of those things where if we properly explain it would kind of ruin the gag. I feel like not knowing what's in the milk is kind of part of the fun. But the idea with the milk is basically the missing girls basically kind of went missing on purpose. They wanted to join this sort of witch cult thing. And part of the process of being transported into this alternate reality dollhouse dimension was to drink the milk that would then usher them into this it's like the final step of the process of being ushered into the witch cult would be to drink, have Gladwell turn up to provide the milk, and then the milk would be the last step to joining the cult.
Did that answer your question, Canister? If you have anything else to add, you can.
I feel like we've all got our own personal theories about what's in the milk. It's a very it's a very personal thing.
Milk is a very personal thing.
All right. The next question. Trying to think. All right. All the questions are shooting in now, and I need to figure out who to give the questions to. Maybe I'll just let whoever thinks they can answer this one jump on. Nellie Sal was wearing a Janus top. Is she connected with the witch people? That's the first one. Can anyone answer that?
Is Nellie Sal here? So Nellie is
I am.
Go ahead.
I am really sorry for causing any confusion. I don't know. My sister and I were just messing around, and the Janus top was just because I really wanted one, so I had one made. That's it.
I don't think you need to apologize for that. I think that's great.
No,
in my mind, it was just because Nellie and her sister were at Janus Institute at the time of Birdcage for some time at least, and it was just supposed to be like a thing that was left over in the wardrobe. I don't know. I just wanted some merch, I guess.
There was another little question in that, which was, who is Lipstick? I actually don't know the answer to that, so can someone answer that?
Lipstick is McMorrow's cat. And that's about as deep as it goes there. Let me see if I can find what Connor wrote about it.
Right, while you do that, Sandy, I'll just ask the next question. So was Huntley grieving a personal loss?
I might jump in that for that one. I think it is pretty strongly hinted there is a trauma that he's dealing with, but we decided not to be super concrete about exactly what it is. I think we sort of intentionally wanted to leave the specifics to the player's imagination. But yeah, there is a trauma that's involved with Huntley, which I'm going to leave for you guys to work out what you think it might be. But I don't. We decided not to go really in depth and really explicit about what it was.
Thanks, Dave. The blue mist. Sandy, are you across the blue mist?
What's the question about it?
The question is, what was the deal with the blue mist? We thought we solved a pathway with that, but never ended up using it and still completed the game.
Right. So that puzzle eventually, can I spoil it? It led, if you followed all of the directions that it provided through the image of the containing all the different symbols, it led you to create a number 6. And then the code within that was dial. So it was basically an extra hint for people who hadn't figured out that you can dial 6 in the switchboard, even though that isn't listed as an option, sort of in the welcoming message. Does that answer your question?
I think that answers it. Yeah, Sandy. There is a question about the first Stawk Pine Falls in Valley of the Dolls. Does Pierce wear a hood only because you needed to reuse the Jenny Barbie doll? Yeah, pretty much. There weren't many Barbie dolls we had when we were in lockdown. So actually Beth, who's just sitting next to me, she's just sitting on the computer. Beth's daughter, Leora, it was her doll's house, and there were only like 2 Barbies. So yeah, we had to reuse the Barbies in unique ways, and one was just chucking a thing on the Barbie doll's head, on the female, Barbie doll's head. All right, next question. Okay. What was the purpose of the medical records? This one's going to be for you again, Sandy. It was fun looking up everyone's health history, but I didn't use the records to solve any mechanics. Was it just fun atmosphere, or did I miss something?
The one clue that I think you were meant to get from the medical records is that the new woman in town, I think her name is Deborah Martin, is that her name? Is the same person as the missing woman, Dorothy. And you can find that out by searching up their names on the medical history. And you see that Deborah has a healed surgery scar on her elbow, and that Dorothy broke her elbow as a child. and had to get it fixed by surgery. So I think that was the main thing you're meant to find there. But it was also just a chance to put in a bunch of fun character Easter eggs about what each and every character in Stawk Falls might have gone to the hospital for at some point in their life. So yeah, I hope that answers your question as well. Oh, Josh has got to go. So if anybody has questions for him, maybe we can ask him later and put them on the
Okay, someone did ask a follow-up question to where did the twin detectives come into things? Totally missed that. Maybe Dave, if you could just give some insight into that, even from the first Stawk Falls.
Yeah, sure. So twin detectives were basically just, Marlene and her detective partner just decided to go all in with creating characters for themselves, which I think some players were maybe potentially confused about whether they were part of our story or not. Which, in my opinion, this whole game is all about community involvement and about sort of your part of the story as well. So it's basically this really cool little branching side story about these two twin detectives. So they've got an Instagram you can find. I think if you just search for twin detectives, you'll find them. Got just a lot of really cool sort of this really cool little side plot that they've created.
All right. The next question was were there more than 3 emails you could hack? And Dave, you did the programming for that, so.
Look, if we had more time, there would have been. There are only 3 emails we could hack, but if we had another week of creating it, we probably would have added more.
Okay. What's this next question? From Brinley, we've got, how do you decrypt the Delta code? We entered the number Gorman put in the closed captions, but then it needed decryption.
Should we spoil it? I feel like we can spoil it. This is like a post game thing.
I guess you can. Yeah, you can turn off your audio. For a quick minute if you don't want to spoil it.
It's basically if you're watching the video. So the video that you get the code from, if you're watching it and you hit the numbers in, Lev Saltzman will give you a series of letters which you can use to access the Delta sequence.
I've also just got Beth here with me now as well, who was involved in the producing. Actually, I'll turn it to me if it turns out. Okay. The next question was Gordon really in a bunker for a year? How is he suddenly on a fishing trip with his dad? And I might get Gorman himself to try to answer that question.
He was in a bunker for a year. I think it's kind of whether that reality is real is kind of up for debate, right, David? I think it's supposed to be a bit vague.
He was at least a little bit elsewhere from regular reality. He was in some alternate realm, and he found his way into this bunker.
Yeah, I was in a reality orthogonal to this one. So.
Yeah. And then I guess the next part is how did he end up with making a fishing show with his dad? I guess it's that gets at a really big question about what's the deal with the whole ending, which is basically the idea that reality in Stawk Falls was kind of busted. So there was a lot of things where reality seemed to be split, or it was two realities at once, or things weren't quite making sense. And the ending with the two witches sort of combining back together again was pretty much that rift being fixed. And so you just end up in this other alternate Stawk Falls in which a bunch of the repercussions of this sort of splitting of reality has been resolved, which includes...
And in which Gorman is no longer a broken man.
Yeah.
I think from that it's also worth going into Jack, the evolution of Gorman from the first Stawk Falls to this. Is there anything you want to go into detail with?
Yeah. So in the first Stawk Falls, Mike had the idea of this kind of conspiracy theorist radio host called Gorman. And so Dave and I were living together at the time, and we just started basically just riffing on this character. And then we wanted to get another character to call in. So we recruited Sandy to play a character she developed, Marilyn. And yeah, just sort of went from there. A lot of Gorman kind of developed during the shows as well. I'm not super consistent on my American accent, so I couldn't remember how to say father with an American accent, so I stumbled over that word. Then people picked up on it and said, like, how's your relationship with your dad? And so that became part of like Gormans Law. So.
Yeah, and I guess moving with that, like Gorman in the first one, that was all improv. So we did kind of find, well, what are the kind of key moments, or like I did sort of work with you, Jack, on like the buck stops with us. We spent a lot of time on that particular speech, but a lot of it was sort of riffed even when you knew what kind of direction you were going. And then I think going into this one, maybe Sandy, if you can go into the creation of characters that came from improvised scenes.
Yeah, so in the first Stawk Pine Falls, almost all of Marilyn's dialogue with Gorman was improvised. I think Jack gave me a couple talking points that I should hit, like for clues or whatever, and the rest was stuff that we just came up with on the fly. And one of the things that we did make up was Jeffrey Jensen. So Jeffrey Jensen was a name I had to make up on the spot, and that's why, like, if you listen back to the original audio, you can hear her like stumble over his name as well. So I think it's really fun that he ended up being sort of a primary villain for the second iteration of Stawk Pine Falls. And I think there was a lot of moments like that where sort of things that were just off the cuff were able to be developed into
I think even having the sugar as like like a path that you could investigate is kind of just off the cuff.
It was completely random. But one thing I did fight for on this episode or this iteration was that the sugar needed a resolution. Like, we needed to figure out why Jeffrey Jensen was stealing the sugar. So if you look in the Valley of the Dolls forums, you can see him bragging about how he pretended to be craft services on the Valley of the Dolls film shoot by stealing the boxes of sugar. So that's where all that sugar went.
Cool. Thanks for that, Sandy. Is Gordon Greer the same person as Gordon Greer from Birdcage? And on top of that, is Gordon Ventures a subsidiary of Janus Ministries?
Oh, okay. So yes, it's the same Gordon. I don't know. I don't think Gordon Ventures is like an extension of Janus, but it is the same person. The Gordon in Gordon Ventures is the same Gordon. Just because I thought it's too good an opportunity to pass up of having that link. But no, I don't think the company is an extension of Janus, but the character is.
Actually, Dave, would you be able to go into the cross-reference of Janus Ministries and what that actually means?
Sure. I mean, the way I've sort of come to view Janus is they're kind of like our version of SCP, which is basically a story about a bunch of different kind of supernatural entities that this organization is trying to study. And so in the last game, Birdcage, there's this minotaur type creature that they're trying to contain. Whereas in this one, you found this old video which is about the six-fingered one, which is sort of like another supernatural entity they're trying to study. And again, you may sort of have picked up potentially that they're not particularly reliable narrators. Like, they're not particularly trustworthy, and so not everything about that old VHS documentary you could sort of take at face value, because they have their own sort of biases and agendas, which may affect the way that the information is delivered.
All right, thanks for that, Dave. Well, I guess this is quite a long question, maybe. Did you know roughly how it was going to end when you made the first one, or did it emerge? I'll let you start that, Dave. If there's anything I want to jump in on, I'll just jump in.
I think yes and no. But there's certainly some things that emerged. I think we only sort of decided halfway through the first one that there was going to be the twin thing of like the 6 and 4 fingers. We knew that we had the 6-fingered character, but then I think we were just like chatting between ourselves as we made it. We decided, maybe there's this other, maybe the client should be another person with 4 fingers, and they were separated at birth. The witch thing also grew as we made it. So there was actually this sort of little Easter egg at the end of the first Stawk Falls where Damien, there's this copy of Damien which is yellow and refers to Dorothy as Bad Dorothy, which is like an intentional reference to this yellow bird that apparently supposedly appeared to Dorothy Good back during the Salem witch trials. So the seeds of all the references to the Salem witch trials was planted in the first one very, very subtly, which came back. But yeah, I've certainly the witch side of things and the 4-fingered witch didn't really exist until the time we finished making the first one.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, like the witches didn't exist at the very start when we first started developing Stawk Falls. I think I had the idea that there were these two kind of giant chess game, but it wasn't sort of certain that they were witches until halfway through. And with the Stawk Falls, I actually can't remember. It was either, I think it was 2 weeks. We only started 2 weeks before we actually launched. So there was a lot of stuff we were creating on the fly, and then it went for about 10 days. So while people were, and that was why it was rusty. Like while people were playing things, we were also trying to make the next thing and smooth it up. But we, it was such a rush with 2 weeks to actually go from, we're going to try and make this whole medium, and then we're also going to do it in a Twin Peaks kind of thing. And then I think Dave did a really good job with this one and actually kind of, making the Firestalk with me a lot more contained, a lot more clean, I think. So maybe not as chaotic, not as messy. It tied up a lot of loose ends. I think it concluded everything really well from my opinion. So I was really happy to pass it on to Dave. And I think he spent a lot of time actually trying to make sure it was it concluded a lot of things. And I don't know, Beth, you were talking before to me earlier today about, what are you talking about? You're talking about how we wanted it to work for players who are just coming on, but also make reference to the first one. Is there anything in detail you want to go into that?
Just that it was a really hard act to follow, and there was a lot of pressure around what was happening to Gorman and wanting to, I guess, come to a resolution, but also not alienate the rest of the people who are just coming on board saying, well, who is this guy that everyone seems to love, and then seeing all of you try to explain who Gorman was to people that had not played the first one was deeply entertaining. It's well, he's kind of a misogynist, but we love him because he's our misogynist. So, but yeah, I think I checked in with you, Dave, and it was it was Friday or Saturday, right in the middle, and I was are you okay? Is everything going all right? Are you stressed? And you're just yeah. Just compared to the first one, I'm quite relaxed actually. I've slept well, and I just knowing the first one was such a mess at the beginning, and just everyone pulling late nights, this entire team has been working so hard, around the clock. They're on the Reddit, that's not in work hours, and they just I guess they're as immersed in the world, if not more so, than everyone else here. So yeah, everyone's really invested and loves all the theories that come up as well.
We've got a question from Chris saying, can we get a Gorman spin-off? So I know we've already had discussions of this. Does anyone want to just jump in? I don't know, Nat, did you have any ideas about a Gorman spin-off as well?
That was not my idea.
Okay, I've definitely talked about it with Dave.
You promised it to Jack in a
I
thank
think
you,
that
in
idea
a thank you
belongs to
message. In a thank you message to the team, you said he might get a spin-off.
Sorry, go Jack. What were you?
I think that idea belongs to the collective unconscious at this point.
Yeah, I think it's just the fact that everyone loves Gorman so much that we're if we ever did another one, it has to be well, I think because Gorman has now just got his fishing show, I think it needs to go back to a Gorman origin story, or even I think of something like being John Malkovich, but being Jay Gorman. If anyone's ever seen Being John Malkovich, I don't know, Dave. Anything to add there?
I'm up for it. If we can think of a good story for it.
Maybe Gorman is working on his fishing show, but then he uncovers some fishing conspiracies that drags him back into the world. You know, he's not in the life anymore.
Like Rambo, yeah.
Yeah.
Rambo 2. Yeah. Like a cross between like Rambo 2 and Frasier. Like,
yeah.
Can I just jump in? I forgot to shout out Jack Nolan earlier. So Jack Nolan basically did a lot of just the grunt work of making this all work. He directed Birdcage. Just basically asked him a lot of questions about how did Birdcage work and how can I copy what worked about that. And also he edited together the visuals for the closing sequence and the trailer.
All right. Next question is, what was Jeffrey's role? Well, we'll start with that. What was Jeffrey's role? Because there's a few ones it's trying to ask about certain characters. You can just give a quick reply. I don't know, Sandy, you probably can explain Jeffrey's role best.
General scamp and dirtbag.
Ambitious.
Yeah. He's sort of, I think, Dave, you were talking about how Jeffrey's kind of he's at the head of the town almost, and he has this spider web kind of connected to everything, and he's got a lot of power in the town. But in terms of the criminal underground of the witches, he's actually at the bottom rung. And maybe that it's because he's head of the neighborhood watch, and he's editor of the Stawk daily, and that's why the criminal underground wanted to get him under their thumb. But in terms of like how much of an evil mastermind he is, not much. He's just a scumbag and a sugar thief.
Accurate. Yeah.
And then I think, so there's Jeffrey's role and then some of the other criminals. So there's the milkman, and then there's the Black and White brothers, who we can talk about in terms of like, I can talk about in terms of how they were formed, but again, the team takes them to a new level and lets them evolve. So the milkman was just had this idea that there was this kind of delivery of milk just called Gladwell's. And that was just a really early idea in like the first week of this kind of puzzle. But yeah, it was a long time since I thought of that. And then the Black and White brothers came from me just driving through Google Street View for like 2 hours to try to find something interesting in the area that I thought Stalkpine Falls would be close to. And then finding these two bikies, one that was sort of like wearing black and one that was wearing white. And then they just became the Black and White brothers. But in terms of the evolution, yeah, if anyone wants to jump in.
I think of them a bit like the brothers are a bit like the cousins from Breaking Bad. They're just true, like just creepy, silent, just death machines. Or like just a couple of Antoine Chigurhs from No Country for Old Men. That's just how I imagine them. And then Gladwell is just a real mysterious dude who he's like a gateway to the other realm. Like he's kind of the ferryman in my mind. Like I've almost like thought of him as kind of the actual real life version of the ferryman.
All right, there's a question about the audio of Gorman. Was the audio of Gorman saying "who's out there" that was hidden in the static at the end of the damage? Which, oh wait, sorry. Was the audio of Gorman saying "who's out there" that was hidden in the static at the end of the damage? Which VHS the only hidden audio in the files?
Yes. Don't keep looking.
Cool. All right. Simple answer. Okay. What was the hardest part to pull off? Maybe that's something a couple of people could share. Actually, Nat, maybe for you, what was the hardest part that you think was to pull off for the whole of Firestalk with me?
We were just discussing this earlier, but when we decided on like the actual production, like we made Firestalk with me over like I'd say like around a weekish, because we were going to open in person, so everyone is back at work and like getting ready to open, but then we got told that we would actually be closed for another 2 weeks, and so we had to like just drop everything and like finish up all the planning for Firestalk with me, and everyone was amazing because we all just jumped on it immediately. No, everyone was ready to go. So I think that was the hardest part. Anyone else want to add anything?
Beth, maybe hardest part.
Well, I guess not sure if Mike's already talked about. Mike was on leave during this period, and I am the newest member of this team. So I come from medical. I'm not creative. And so suddenly it was like, okay, well, we need to prepare for reopening. No, Daniel Andrews is going to open us up like earlier. Yes. No, we're not going to open. It's like, okay, that's fine. Let's keep going. And suddenly it's like, guys, we need to come out with this now for Halloween. And, you know, so these guys have just been like pulled whichever way. But yeah, I guess like the dream and the outline of the story was always there. And I guess Dave, particularly Dave and Nat, so Nat's been, Ukiyo at Home was something that got pitched as an idea of like, well, what else do we do if we can't open for months, you know, and we can't open rooms, what do we do? And it was a product of discussion, and Nat came up with, well, what if we gave people an experience that they could do at home that was still the kind of thing that, telling stories, bringing those things to life. So this is Ukiyo at Home. And then, the way I see it, I started off playing Stawk Pine Falls. So I have also a lot of like questions. I came on as a really big super fan of, we need to come up with a sequel. And I think these two in particular have just kept thinking about what they're going to do, and the plan was always there, like 75, I'd say like maybe 60% complete, and then everyone was just ready to kind of drop everything and put all their effort into it. It definitely the idea of whether or not we were going to be able to do justice to much loved story in such a short period of time, and also reopen the studio. That's been a big challenge.
Thanks, Beth. All right, another question was there a puzzle going on with the hammer and anvil in the Stawk daily? And Dave, I might get you to answer that.
Nah, more just like a bit of a gag. It was basically, it's just clear there's been a bit of a falling out with this this metalworking company, and they're both trying to just take the hammer, one half of hammer and anvil, and try to rebrand it themselves and go off with it. Which I'm keen to see how it works for them. Like who's going to win.
Well, on that note, Dave, are there other things from the first Stawk Pine Falls that were actually just a bit of a gag? Because when I first came onto the team, the first question I asked Nat and Dave was, Real News Gorman, that first newspaper that had all those letters and like was there something to decode there? Because I spent about 2 hours there. I don't know if any of you guys spent that much time. And they said, oh no, we just thought it looked cool and I wanted to kill them. Yes.
Yep, that was for sure the biggest problem with part one, because we were having a blast just doing all the world building and just like creating characters, just creating much of just really fun content, and just being sort of unleashed to do that. But the more we did that, more it was like, okay, is this a clue or isn't it a clue? And players are just like, I can't tell. Is this like a funny thing? Is this a gag, or is this like part of the puzzle? And so I was quite conscious of trying to not completely get rid of that, because that's just part of the fun of the game, is just all the fun world building and little character moments, but to make it a lot less. So I really wanted to reward players this time for doing like their murder boarding. Like I want to, if players are creating a murder board, it's going to pay off this time. Like they'll be like regularly discovering things if they do it, rather than like just going down really, really big, long garden paths without finding any reward for it, which I think quite a few players really experienced in the first one, just as a side effect of us making a lot of content for it that wasn't necessarily part of the puzzle.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that this time when we made tangents that build like on the world, the tangents had a definite end. So it's like you don't feel like you were robbed of like that it didn't go anywhere, but you still got to learn like interesting things about the world or about your favorite characters and their secret lives.
All right. I'm just going to jump. I know Sandy's got to go real soon, so I'm just going to jump to the question. wondering what your professional backgrounds are. Are you scriptwriters, computer scientists, filmmakers, journalists? And I guess just before we jump into that, I mean, we are a very young, inexperienced, but wild team. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think everyone can maybe give a little spiel personally. Everyone has their own kind of story. In terms of, well, actually, I didn't do Firestorm for me, so maybe Dave, I'll let you start.
Oh, sure. Just for myself, I'm from like a film background, so I studied film and TV at Swinburne. And only really sort of recently getting into game design. So I've just, it's been like a fairly new hobby of mine is just puzzle design and making puzzle games, making computer games.
Nat, do you want to go next?
Sandy, do you want to go since
Sure.
you need to? Sorry.
Okay, I'll say one and then I'll jump off. But yeah, my background is primarily in comedy, live comedy. But in terms of writing, I guess I come from a classic literature academic background, so a bit weirder. And this is also sort of my first foray into game design. But I'm having a ball. It's a really great team.
Thanks, Sandy. And maybe Nat, now you can go.
So I am currently a film student studying film and TV at Swinburne, and I have also just been writing for a very long time. So I've been writing novels for quite a long time. So I would say that's my general background.
Jack?
Yeah, so mostly just comedy is my background. So I did an arts degree in a field that was not related at all, and then just a lot of comedy, like improv, stand-up, and sketch. So.
Beth, you can go first.
What? Yeah, well, my background is medical. So my degree is in nursing. I guess this was significant for me because I guess that's what I do, and I love my job in HR. But I guess I did the practical thing, but what I wanted to be when I grew up was a writer. So it's kind of me trying to get closer to whatever that looks like. Yeah.
Thanks, Beth. In terms of me, I mean, I didn't really study anything. I just sort of started Ukiyo like right after high school. It was sort of like a bit of a pipe dream in year 12 in literature class when I should have been studying literature, and I was just daydreaming. And then I did 6 months of like a chemical pharmaceutical degree before I got a lease and then opened up Deep Space. But I guess in terms of an actual background, I think I was always writing, always making games, whether like online or for just friends or like youth groups or whatever. And I didn't have aspirations to be a game designer because I thought that was impractical. So, and probably told other people it was impractical, and then just went for it when I was 19. But yeah, I think a lot of us have just sort of learned this on the fly. And I think I have a lot of belief in my team to come from, it's like, not everyone has come from like game design backgrounds or even just working in studios for years and years. It's just like, I think, everyone's gifted here and has potential and cares about story. And then I'm like, yep, I believe in you. Let's just do it. So I think there's just a lot of potential in this team, but we are actually very inexperienced and young. And that's just something we just need to try and work on. All right, next question was about theories. Was Baby Madison the reborn form of Martha Marrow? If so, why did that happen? Dave?
Sure, yes, that is correct. So Martha Marrow is one of the incarnations of Six. So Six is continually being reborn and collecting new Coven members. Grows at a regular rate. And does have the memories of Martha and the previous incarnations. That's actually why Baby Madison needed the Ouija board So the Ouija board was basically, she's a baby, she can't talk, so she needs to spell out her instructions by moving the Ouija board around and spelling out what she wants. So yeah, there's basically like this eternal consciousness that's being passed down. Actually, I guess I'll use this opportunity to talk a bit more about the dynamic of the coven, because to me it is kind of a tragic story, which is basically the idea there's these 5 kind of disillusioned women that basically have been offered something that seems to be quite meaningful. They've been offered something profound and meaningful they can be part of, but then they kind of end up being either objectified, so Dorothy's only value is in her ability to bear a child, so she's just objectified for that purpose, and the ones that weren't chosen just get discarded, and they've been basically pretty much literally objectified and turned into dolls in a dollhouse. So there's a lot of sort of themes going on there. Like, I think it just sort of emerged as a natural thing that there's these themes of, I guess, like female disempowerment versus empowerment. It sort of comes up with Shirley Wilson and having this sort of really incompetent boss, but she's forever just the deputy and unable to do what she wants to do. Same, I guess, a little bit with Marilyn as well. Like, she's never taken seriously, kicked off the neighborhood watch. Power is always sort of removed from her ability to access it. So it is like a recurring theme in there that sort of came up kind of just organically as part of the story that emerged.
On top of that, was everything a figment of Huntleys' overactive imagination?
Well, I guess we sort of left that open enough that you could just decide for yourself. So there's a reason we didn't give a concrete answer, yes or no, to that. But so I'll leave that to you if you want to decide. If your interpretation is that it's a part of all his imagination, that's a valid interpretation. But I can run through if it's not. So if it's not, then pretty much the story is that the reason he was chosen by 4 as a detective is because he's able to communicate with you. So his connection with you, the player, who is basically like a 21st century hive mind that's able to interact with Stalkpine Falls through technology, is what is special about him. And that's sort of why he was chosen by 4 as the detective to track down 6.
Thank you, Dave. There's just some comments. Why Crumb Bum for the detonation code? Did someone just feel silly that day?
I think Callum might have just felt silly that day.
I can answer that question.
Hey!
Hey!
Callum.
Hey, Cal!
It's me, yeah. There's a number of reasons why it's like that. Can you guys hear me all right? Well, number one was because I needed a lot of sounds that could be also words, like letters that are also words. So like C, R, U, and B are all like words that could be turned into letters basically. So I had those letters, or like I had to use them basically for the puzzle to make sense. And then Crumb Bum is just like a term that my mum often would call me as a child.
That's hilarious. I never heard you called Crumb Bum by your mom.
Yeah, that's the origin of Crumb Bum. It was like I already had CR, U and B, and then I just had to make M happen.
Yeah.
And then that was yeah.
Cal, we were explaining our professional backgrounds. Do you want to just go into yours quickly?
I was found in a cave somewhere off the coast of Greece, uncovered, and a ritual was performed. No, but I have so I have a degree in animation. So I do like, what do you call it? Freelance animation. And I've been working here since I graduated uni, basically. So.
All right. The next question is, I couldn't find anything interesting in the newspaper from Saturday night. What did I miss?
I can answer that. So the main thing, I guess the most important thing in that newspaper is it gives you a number that you can't actually call, but the number is in the format of like based on text. So hitting the letters on the dial pad. So just to preempt that, so to get players used to the idea of using the letters on your phone, which is required for the puzzle where you basically do Operation Delta. There's also a little hint in there about, there's closed captions on the the YouTube channel for the public radio, and also that it's on computers because the puzzle only really works on a computer. So there's a few things in there that were important just to set up the puzzle for the public radio that day.
There's a question from Saoirse, which is, why did we bomb Moscow or Moscow? Does anyone have that answer?
It's a
Gorman? Is it Callum's idea?
All right, yeah. So in terms of that, so for one thing, it was just like I wanted to weave in something very 90s into it, and I sort of the end of the Cold War. Because originally, I guess, when I first wrote it, I was mistaken about what year Stawk Pine Falls took place, and I thought it was around 91, which would make around this time in the year when essentially the Soviet Union disbanded, kind of thing. But then I just sort of thought the idea appealed to me of like Gorman inadvertently restoking like Cold War tensions. Kind of, like it's almost like his final act or the final consequence of his actions led to everyone in the world becoming as paranoid as he was, basically. So it was almost like the final escalation of what could happen to Gorman's character is that he makes the whole world as paranoid as he is, and I thought that was like a fitting end. Because I think there was a sense that I feel like the players wanted to find Gorman, but I almost was like, I don't think it's a good idea for them to save Gorman. You know what I mean? It was almost like, is it a good idea to rescue him? Like, I don't know if he's necessarily... I think that we needed to have a conclusion of what happened to him, so I thought that was like a fitting end for him, basically.
Thanks, Cal. What's this? Very important, totally ultra serious question. Somehow you've used several ideas in the game that I've actually made art of in these past few months. Would you care to explain how you've been infiltrating my consciousness? Maybe Jack McCauley? I'll let you answer this one as Gorman, transcending the worlds.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, Gorman belongs to the collective unconscious, so yeah, I guess it's very, Twin Peaks. It's very Lynchian, so I guess we're all having a shared experience, and some people are more tapped into that substrate than others, and I guess we're on the same wavelength, so that's fun.
Well, while we got Jack, Dave was telling me that your parents actually have been playing Stalk with me. Can you tell us how they responded to news of having bombed their son? Or can Dave?
I'm not actually sure. I don't know the story. Dave, do you want to tell?
Hey.
I think Andy's here. If Andy would like to jump in,
Please.
If you would like
I'd love
to.
to hear from you.
If Papa McGaulett could please jump on.
Papa Mac.
If you would care to.
We were actually playing with some friends via chat, and we got a bit stuck on how to decode the number and convert it to Crumb Bum, and so we were asking some friends how to do it. And they said, "Oh, we should do a chat." And so they actually explained how to do it. And so they said, "Oh, can we watch?" Because they'd already done it, so they knew what was coming. So they said, "Can we watch while you dial this?" So they were in hysterics watching us basically bomb our sons.
While he begs your forgiveness, no less.
Yeah, that's right. And I don't know if everyone saw my little comment, but before when I think it was Callum talking about Russia in '93, David was actually in Russia in 1993. So that's a nice little fact there for you.
All connected.
There you go, mail order Buck. It's all connected.
There's another question which is, how did we all come together? Which I guess maybe it's better if everyone answers that personally, because obviously I hired you all, but you probably have your own reason why why you were hired. Maybe Dave. Actually, maybe we could start in the order of arrival.
That's true.
Of official arrival. So maybe Callum, if you go first.
See your face.
Wait, is Cal still there?
I don't know. Yes, whose face was there?
Yeah, I'm in the office. I don't want to leak anything. Well, I mean, I've known Michael since we were like, what, 6 years old? So 5. Okay, yeah, 5. I don't remember.
5 fingers, not 6 fingers.
5 fingers, not 6 fingers. Yeah. And basically, I was graduating uni, and Michael was like, "Oh, you wanna?" I think it was about a month out of I was graduating, and I was like working on my animated film, and probably only sleeping about 4 hours a day. And Michael was like, "You want to come work with me?" I'm like, "I'll do literally anything other than this. Please free me from my animation dungeon. I no longer want to be here." And that's how I started.
Dave, I believe you were next.
Yeah, so basically Jack, my brother, found your ad and read it and went, "Hey, this is something that fits with Dave's skill set." And I read it and I'm like, yeah, this is a weird collection of skills that I don't, for some reason I have. And I applied, and I was working at the ATO, same sort of thing. Please get me out of here. I was working at the call center for the tax office. I'm like, I would prefer this. This sounds better. So I applied for the job.
So pretty much everyone was in their own doll's house, and I was just trying to get them out. Jack, you went next.
Yeah, so I know Mike from high school, and so I'd actually done beta testing for the Crumbling Prince before it was released, so I was aware. I think I'd been promoting a comedy show, like just on Facebook to friends, and Mike came along to one of my, like a couple of my shows, and that was cool. Like that's how we reconnected after high school. Then I saw Mike was looking for work, so I recommended Dave because like it matched up with his skill set. Then I ended up working the same job that Dave had been working at the tax office, and that kind of drudgery, I was like going down some dark rabbit holes on YouTube, so he saved me from the doors, much like
you could have become a Gorman.
And so that's I think I was working there, and then Mike just reached out through Dave and said, "Hey, we're looking for someone." So, and then I joined.
I think we actually got a coffee. We went out.
Yeah.
And then I asked you if you wanted a job.
Yeah.
Nat?
So I met Michael through church, who was actually my youth leader, and he also knew that I was writing a novel at the time. And so after high school, Mike was just like, "Oh, do you want to come work for me? Like, I'm looking for people." And I was like, yes, I do want to watch people struggle inside an escape room. And I also beta tested Deep Space Divinity and the Crumbling Prince as well. Callum, don't laugh. And well, yeah, I pretty much beta tested anything that Michael threw at me, so that was fun.
There's also a recurring theme of people are attached to different parts of my life. I'm a very nostalgic person, and so I need staff from all parts of my life, just to keep me invigorated in some way.
We don't have much individual value. We're more like parts of a pastiche that Mike keeps around. So.
I guess Beth, you can explain as well. You can explain the history.
First, I'm new. Oh, what? Oh, well, what Nat was saying. So, Mike was Nat's youth leader. I was Michael's youth leader. So I'm a tiny bit older than him and the rest of the team. I think. How did it start off? We were about to travel for like 6 months. Mongolia by herself, because that's just the kind of thing that Mike does. And then it was like one of the nights like before he was gonna go, and like last minute thing of like, hey, by the way, I have this idea. This cool idea. Explains to me, for those of you who have done the very first escape room iteration of Deep Space, he was just explaining his ideas, and like wanting to create this way of being able to tell stories and kind of fusing immersive narrative gameplay, but of course in typical Mike style, it's not an escape room, and it's not it's not choose your own adventure. It's not like being exactly in a film. It's going to be my own thing and my own way of doing it. So yeah, that is kind of, I came on board then, unofficially, just spent time trying to help edit some of the early narrative iterations of things. And then now I have come on board because the company is getting so big that it's we need a HR department, and so I am a HR. And yes.
Thanks, Beth, and thanks everyone for their kind words to me. I think if anyone has any final questions, maybe just chuck that in, because obviously we're past 8, so we might need to tie it up real soon. There was a question for how many fingers Callum has, which I can confirm he has 5 on each hand.
Why is it being asked how many fingers I have? Why?
Maybe because you're hiding a video. I don't know.
Yeah, is that something that I missed earlier on, or is it just?
Who have you been talking to?
Yeah. How do you know? What have you heard?
You're incredibly defensive about that, Callum.
Yeah. Because it's like 5.5, I would say.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, I'm just going to go to the final question. I might just give this to you, Dave. So, interested in the motivation of the witches. 6 was focused on running a criminal underground and recruiting vulnerable women to maintain her immortality. 4 hired Huntley, which ultimately led to 4 snatching baby 6 and reuniting them. Interested in your thoughts on their motivations.
Sure. I think, what was the user called? I don't know how to pronounce this. He Yallen had a really good sort of breakdown, which is very close to my thoughts about it, which is basically like that back in the day, 4 got jealous of 6, tried to get her killed, which basically had a pretty negative impact on 6, and 6 sort of went down this path of immortality, reincarnation, power, pretty standard stuff. I want to live forever. I want power, and a power network to protect me from 4. And there's like an ongoing cycle of 4 being vengeful, and then this realization at a certain point that this is like an endless cycle of vengeance and death. And by the time that we sort of now see 4 in this story, 4 has kind of realized that it's this that this is a bad cycle that needs to be ended. And that's sort of basically why she recruits Huntley. And it's less about this time about tracking down 6 to kill them. It's more about tracking down 6 so that we can fix this whole dynamic.
Great, thanks for that, Dave. I think that's everything for questions. Dave, did you want to just go into what's coming up from Ukiyo this next year?
Yeah, so in terms of Ukiyo at home, the next thing we're looking at is basically, partly it's a card game. So I think, are we calling it Kitsunado? Is that locked in, or are you still not sure of the name?
The name's not locked in.
Could be anything. Could be called anything. But there's this basically a card game we're working on, which also has this sort of expanded puzzle element we're also exploring. So yeah, that's our next thing we're working on for Ukiyo at home.
Which is in the Crumbling Prince universe.
Yeah, so set in the universe of the Crumbling Prince, which is one of our big escape room. Well, I guess we're calling it escape room, but we need a better title because it's kind of not an escape room. And that's something we're talking about.
Please help us with that. Yeah.
What do we call it? Yeah. So they're basically a physical exhibit / interactive story. So we're also planning the next Crumbling Prince escape room as well, which is our next big thing we're working on. We're making plans for our for potentially a cyberpunk game. So a cyberpunk, a physical room, which is sort of more cyberpunk themed. So I guess those are really big projects that are coming up.
Great. Did you want to say anything?
No, I'm just looking at adventure rooms. I'm like, yes, thank you, Gordon. Stop co-opting everything, Jack.
I guess that's pretty much everything. So we'll just tie it up for now. I'll let Dave tie it up, and then if anyone wants to stick around at the end and have a bit more of a conversation, that's perfectly fine. Dave, did you? Yeah.
Oh yeah, just a quick shout out to just our team. It's been amazing to work with. Like they just made my job really, really easy. It's been a pleasure. It was really fun to watch what people come out with. And also just shout out to the people on Reddit that were helping out. Like in Canister, huge asset. Just sort of people that are stuck jumping in and helping out. It's been great. Love Twin Tactives. Love anything related to just people making their own sort of fan content is just always amazing. Really fun to see. Great work with like the theories with Helen. Just 5 steps ahead all the time. Like just really on the ball in terms of predicting where things are going. That's the main thing. It's been really fun to do these.
So just a big thanks to everyone as well who took part, and everyone who I guess was like, I guess I'll spend $5 to $15 on this random experience that I have no idea what it's going to be or entail. So thanks everyone for taking part, and to all the other unnamed players that did help people through, because I know that there were a lot of people that did that, and a lot of that happens in the DMs as well sometimes. Thank you to you guys. Thank you to thanks for helping us stay afloat and for keeping us sane in the darkness of COVID and just lockdowns in general. But I guess that's pretty much from me. If anyone wants to say final things, feel free, or else stick around. We've got to go. So Dave, you're in charge.
All right, sure.
Thanks everyone.